Hello everyone, my name's Pete and I don't like MMOs, so I'm going to play a bunch of them. The reason for that is because I don't know why I say I don't like them, so let's see if I'm talking rubbish or that I guessed correctly. If you want to join me on this journey, then consider subscribing, and if you want to see me play something specific, then don't be shy and put it in the comments. Tibia is a game that's lurked in my memory from a long time ago, and a kind commenter reminded me of it a few weeks back, and honestly I was just astounded that not only does it still exist, but there are still thousands of active players. So I signed up. Launching the game, I was a little confused at the lack of sound, both effects and music. For some reason I just assumed that there was a default option to have the sound muted, but I'll find the setting later. My first impression of what I'm seeing is that I really like this aesthetic. I know that the game is a relic by now, but you could make something these days with this style, and I would still find it endearing. Bright and vibrant colours and a consistent style for me is a lot nicer to look at than a failed attempt at realistic graphics, and I will die on that hill. The tutorial here is very basic, but it's also really effective. Within a matter of seconds, I've been shown how to move, pick up items, fight, loot, interact with NPCs, and use rope spots, which are transitions that are not doorways, ladders, or stairs. Tibia opts for a Morrowind-style conversation tree where you can click on or even type keywords to advance through topics. This can get a bit clunky at times, but I'll come back to that later. Once I've killed a wounded dragon and been given directions to leave the area, suddenly the game window resizes to give much more screen space to the text boxes underneath. I'm sure there's a good reason for this, and as I play I'll probably find that this kind of space is required, but for now I want to properly see the world I'm exploring. So I resized the window, and then for some reason my capture went to a black screen and I didn't notice for 20 whole minutes. But don't worry, because the next hour or so was just me going around killing things. The next thing I did was do a Google, and I found out that there is in fact no soundtrack to Tibia. This is a very odd design choice, but that's fine. So I took off my headset. Then I speak to the NPC standing nearby, and he offers me some advice. Apparently I'm going to need a shovel, but also I have to now reach a level 8 before I can leave this training area. I have a choice of going off and exploring and killing things to gain the levels, or accepting quests from the various NPCs scattered around. I decide to explore first, and I walk outside to be told that I am now a druid. I thought there'd be a choice on this, but I will just work with whatever the game throws at me. It took me too long to notice the spells in my hotbar, so all I did here was use the basic wand attack, and I thought spellcasters were going to be really boring to play because of this. I walked back in and then out of another door, and suddenly I'm a sorcerer, and then I realised that I'm in a class test area, and if I'd read the pop-up properly I would already know this, but I'm an idiot and that is not going to change anytime soon. This time I learned how to cast spells, and by god that's some damage increase. I tried using a shop to see if I could get more food, which is very useful for long-term healing. The layout of the screen is a bit confusing at first, but it makes sense and it works as it should, and each click becomes more comfortable. I tried out the classes and the spells that were made available, and whilst the spells are an increase in power, the AoE ones are a bit confusing to cast at first. They're based on the direction that you're facing, which makes perfect sense, but if something's blocking you from moving in that direction, then you can't turn to face that direction. So if an enemy occupies the space behind you, then you'll have to move forward and then turn around before casting some of your spells. There's a sign outside a cave that the trolls have placed telling me there's no loot to be found down here. This could be bait, but by god am I going to bite it. At this point I'm trying the paladin class, which specialises in ranged combat, and they're also a bit squishy because they're supposed to fight from a distance and I have to retreat. I'll come back later as a knight so I can tank some damage. At this point there are a lot of things that could bother me about Tibia. The lack of a soundtrack, the absence of animations for most attacks, the visual feedback that doesn't exist for a lot of actions, and the fact that it's quite obviously another skill grinder. But these things are not what hampers my experience. The only thing that's really bugging me right now is the inability to move diagonally. And that's it. That's my biggest gripe. I regain my knight powers and I head back underground, and it's here I begin to notice the very large aggro range of the mobs. If they appear on your screen, they will head towards you. I make my way through several levels of the cave and reach a troll marked as Salamander Trainer. Obviously this is the git responsible for all the troll trained salamanders knocking about the place. It turns out that this guy is tough, and he's surrounded by his pets, and I get cornered. The inability to move through or around occupied squares is very important, and I need to pay more attention to my positioning. But here I die for my mistakes, and I learned that death comes at a penalty of skills and items. Being in the training area, I don't lose anything this time, but knowing this now is very beneficial to me. There is of course a real money solution to losing things on death. Even this relic from the past will sell you convenience, but it's not being pushy with it, so I'm not going to get mad. I speak to the NPC near the resurrection point, and they tell me that I'll need to choose my class when I reach level 8 before I leave this island. I think I've already decided that I'm going to go with the knight, because being a bit more tanky will be important to a newer player. I found the skills window through clicking around a bit, and I saw there's also a fishing skill, and I don't know why, but I just love that in these MMOs. Having something to master that's not based on combat is a great way to add less stressful progression to a game. There's also a bar for offline training. I don't know how to use this, but I'm curious as to what it might mean. Is this a way to play the game while not playing the game? I go to deposit some coins into the bank because apparently they only stack up to 100, so they're going to take up a lot of inventory space eventually. But then I find I have to manually type in the amount I want to deposit, and I then have to type yes to confirm my choice. This is a clunky and awkward system, and I'd much prefer a simple box in the interface to the side, but this has worked for players for this long, so I think I can also just shut my damn mouth. I accepted a quest and immediately got credited with completion because I'd already killed my quota of trolls in the vicinity, and then I found a book that gave me some of the lore for the land. It's very generic and derivative fantasy, but it's also very comfortable and leaves lots of room for nice storytelling. It makes me a little bit excited to get out there and do some real quests. Now I just need a couple of levels, so I decide to explore a little farther out. It turns out that, rather logically, the further out from the hub you get, the harder the enemies are, and I end up retreating because I know that I can get trapped and die quite easily. It's going to be really important that I learn to move correctly and think ahead, and I will need to learn this soon. So I decide to sit at a salamander spawn point and grind out the last 2 levels. I go back and confirm my class choice, and I'm given a full set of gear to start me off, and I'm sent to the ship that will take me away. Now, in a really nice touch, you can choose where you sail to from here. So experienced players will have a great advantage in getting exactly where they want to be in the world. I'm a new player, and the NPC kindly informs me that a great place to start out is Venore, so I choose to go there, and I have to type the name in, which again is a cool feature, especially for returning players. This system has its flaws, but it also has its benefits, and right now, I'm not certain which outweighs which. I arrive in Venore and it's massive. I mean, it probably isn't relative to other areas, but for a little newbie, the streets are confusing, the signs are even more confusing. Luckily, a helpful lady explains that I should go to the temple and use my Adventurer's Stone to get to the Adventurer's Guild to get started, and then I proceed to get lost. The most temple-looking structure doesn't seem to interact with my stone, so I keep wandering, and there's just so much to see that I don't understand. But I find myself enjoying the sights. I'm enjoying being lost. There's nothing pressing, so I just look around and see what's on offer. I take a closer look at the signposts and do my best to locate the temple, and everything points towards my first assumption being correct. And it's then that I notice a staircase leading down, tucked away inconspicuously in a corner. And I head down there to find that obviously the temple is underground. Duh. I use my stone and get zapped into the guild, and boy oh boy, there are a lot of people to talk to. So now I'm just going to learn what I can and maybe pick up a quest or 2. I think I can already see that I'm going to be grinding stats to accept tougher quests, and honestly, this gameplay loop is fine with me. It's no different in concept to RuneScape, although it's going to be really hard to be as satisfying as that. To summarise my experience, Tibia is a perfectly fine game so far. It's functional, it's easy enough to learn, and it's just generally inoffensive in its execution. I'd personally prefer a soundtrack, but that's just because I'm not inclined to have anything on the second monitor when I play something. I even watch Josh Strife Hayes on the main screen. It's just the kind of guy I am. Only time will tell if I like this enough to play more, but if there's something else you'd like to see me try out, then please leave it in the comments and I'll gladly take a look. And if this sort of thing is something you want to see more of, then maybe hit subscribe too. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.